It is 2019, my dudes. Before we get into this, Happy New Year to everyone. There are some changes coming to the channel. I'm finally listening to the incessant advice of you and the incessant advice of my friends that I have, and cutting back the video production to 2 a week on Mondays and Fridays respectively. This week being the exception, of course, because there was no Monday this week in 2019. I'm not sure that I'm extremely comfortable with this yet, but everyone tells me to do it, and so I'm trying it out. Also, the short stories channel is changing from every other Wednesday to 2 short stories a month. That does not have any effect on the number of stories released, it just gives me a little more leeway in how I schedule things. But nobody watches that channel anyway, so who cares? You know those people who constantly complain about the dismally slow pace at which technology is advancing? Or worse, the people who seem to think that technology has just stopped because there hasn't been a massive world-changing breakthrough this week. It's like, dude, maybe fucking chill for like a minute. These are the kind of people who decry Elon Musk as being a con artist because he promised he would put people on Mars by 2025, and it's 2019 and there aren't any people on Mars today. These things take time, they happen in small increments, there needs to be a lot of research always, there's a lot of engineering problems that pop up that were before unforeseen, and a lot of people just claim that he hasn't achieved anything at all, which is factually incorrect because he literally built a rocket that fucking lands itself. There is this strange, mostly subconscious notion, apparently, in a lot of people's heads that technology is just done now. We might get a little faster internet speeds, we might get a faster graphics card once in a while, but new technologies are not being discovered anymore. We have maxed out the tech tree. And you would think that living in our modern day and age, where there is a new fucking breakthrough almost every day, people would not think this way. But they do, because they just demand the potential of all technologies discovered to be immediately achieved. Most of the time, they are lay people, the kind of lay people who believe that because there was a Bitcoin bubble, just the entirety of blockchain technology is utterly useless. This is a failure of the imagination, born from, on one hand, not understanding the technology itself, and also not actually following the news around that technology, but just looking for the big headlines. But they will be the ones making fun of the people who are actually pursuing those technologies, because apparently knowing nothing about a subject matter whatsoever is the thing that qualifies you to ascertain that all of the people that are actually working hard to make that technology a reality are losers. And though the reasons for this are numerous, I blame pop science magazines. I have never, ever read any headline in a pop science magazine that was anything even remotely approaching the reality of the situation. They will overhype the shit out of every single scientific breakthrough and just make stuff up and ignore the very important caveats that come with every new discovery and every new study, just so they can get clicks. And they will set the standards at a level that they, of course, can never possibly be fulfilled. When scientists say, hey, look, we did this thing, right? We had the HI virus and we reprogrammed it using genetic engineering to attack cancer cells. And we think that with like a decade more research, this might actually be extremely useful in curing some forms of cancer. Pop science journals will go, cancer has been cured with AIDS. There is no more cancer in the whole world. Cancer is over because they cured it with AIDS that can cure cancer with AIDS. When scientists say, yeah, this Oumuamua thing that is going through the solar system, I mean, you know, it's just an extrasolar object. It's a very interesting extrasolar object, probably just a rock. But it does tick some of the boxes of behaving like what we would expect some types of alien spacecraft to behave. So it's really more of a meme among the scientific community, but it's not something that can be definitively ruled out, but 99% chance it's not an alien spacecraft. Pop science journals will go, Oumuamua is definitely 100% an alien spacecraft, and it's headed for the United Nations building right now. It's gonna land in a week. All scientists agree on this. When scientists go, hey, look, we have this thing, in our fusion reactor, where we actually managed to make efficient fusion happen. We got a minimal, barely measurable amount more energy out of the process than we put in, but we did demonstrate that it is practically possible to actually achieve efficient nuclear fusion. The pop science journals will go, they did it. The mad scientists did it. They built the fusion reactor, and it's already powering the whole world. All of the world's being powered with free ubiquitous energy because they managed to do it. They managed to do fusion now. Are you surprised that people are constantly disappointed? And speaking of fusion, people will get such a hard-on about their own intellectuality when they say shit like, oh, fusion is the energy of the future. And always will be. Because obviously we've been trying to get nuclear fusion for decades, but we haven't done it yet. Or rather, we have done it repeatedly, we just haven't developed a kind of reactor that can be commercially deployed and actually function to do the thing that we hope nuclear fusion will do. And fusion does sound utopian as fuck. You have massive amounts of basically free energy that is made of the cheapest fuel available in the whole universe, and it has absolutely no drawbacks whatsoever. That is an unequivocally good thing, and good things never ever happen. Look at I intellectual because I nihilistic pessimist. Next time someone tells you this, point at the sky, it's up there. Well, here is the ceiling, but beyond that and like a few more other levels of the building, then there's the sky. The ancient Egyptians tried to get flying machines going. For millennia, the greatest geniuses born to humanity tried to develop machines that could fly. How smug do you think the intellectuals of that day felt when they said, flight is the transportation method of the future? And always will be. We didn't build a practical airplane that could fly long distances until 1905. And until the very point where it actually completed the flight, people were telling the Wright brothers that their plan was insane and could never ever work. Even when they had it fully functional, many people insisted that the technology would not take off, as it were, much like, automobiles. There's no reason anyone would ever have a computer inside of their home. Probably there's gonna be like 10 computers in the whole world at max when the technology reaches its peak, is what people said in the 60s. And as we all know, that is exactly how it came to pass. Another culprit for this shit that I blame is science fiction. And it pains me to do this because science fiction is my favorite literary genre, and it's not even really the genre's fault or even the fault of the authors that they set these absurd expectations. What people like to forget is that anything but the most diamond-hard sci-fi is there primarily to tell a story, not to make accurate predictions about the future. Now that we're entering the year of Blade Runner, people complain that we have neither flying cars, nor replicants, or even off-world colonies for that matter. And you know why we don't have those things? Because they weren't fucking predictions! They're in there because they're cool and interesting. They add something to an exploratory narrative about things that do not exist in our world. It's not like Ridley Scott and the people in his writing room went, oh yes, we are going to construct a realistic view of the world in 2019 because that is the purpose of what we're doing here. Fantasy literature doesn't have this problem because everyone understands that it's fiction. Imagine complaining that they didn't make the Force from Star Wars into a real thing yet. People do not do this because they understand that the Force is a purely fantastical element that is part of the story because it's interesting. Whenever you watch a sci-fi film, unless it's really like hard sci-fi that makes the claim of actually potentially predicting technologies in the future, treat every technology that you see as a possibility, but otherwise just like you would the Force. It's all just unobtainium-based stuff. But no, because some Hollywood writers in the 80s decided that hoverboards would be really cool, we now today turn around to science and go, dude, What the fuck? Where's my hoverboard? You promised. And all the scientists can do is shrug and say, we didn't promise you this. They came up with this shit. We never said this was possible. And nobody even talks about the technologies that we did get that don't even exist in these futuristic scenarios. Yeah, we don't have flying cars, but our communications technology is so much more advanced than anything these future flying car scenarios were able to predict. The same is true to an extent with predictions made by futurists, by the way. People like to complain that we didn't get some technology that they predicted, forgetting that we are way ahead on schedule on other technologies that they predicted. We like to forget that Ray Kurzweil has like an 80% accuracy rating when it comes to predicting future technologies. And before you spurg the fuck out, yes, I am aware that some people have debunked Ray Kurzweil by demonstrating that his accuracy is more like 50%. Their approach, by the way, tends to go something like this. Well, if you just sort of leave out most of the things that he does get correct, and also consider all of the things incorrect that he misjudges by like 1 year, then his rating goes way down, lol. Because that's the thing with Ray Kurzweil, he's very accurate as to technologies existing, but he's a bit optimistic as to their widespread use. That is the place where you tend to see the shortcomings. We have some very advanced technology, but it's simply too specialized or too recent, too expensive to be in widespread use among common people at this point. Economies of scale hasn't kicked in yet, but it will, because that's how it works. Oh, and just as a side note, you know what almost no serious futurist tends to predict ever? Flying cars. They are a sci-fi trope. Do not confuse sci-fi tropes with actual real predictions about the future. Flying cars are unsafe and impractical and will probably never be a thing, at least not for the average consumer. Drones are just better at doing all of the things that we would use flying cars for. That being said, this is the exact same thing that people used to say about automobiles and computers. So maybe I'm wrong about that. In any event, here are just some of the major scientific advancements that we saw in 2018, just so you know that science has not in fact come to a standstill, and all of the stuff that can happen in a single year. They built a single lens that could focus all colors in the rainbow in a single spot in HD. This was previously only possible with multiple lenses. They developed a robot arm that gives you a sense of touch even outside of a controlled laboratory environment. They developed a new 3D printing technique that allows high accuracy printing of soft tissue. AIs with better average reading comprehension than humans were developed. They trained T cells to fight certain types of cancer a lot better. They developed a blood test for early detection of 8 common types of cancer. They found a method of making molecular machines 100,000 times faster than natural chemical processes. They developed artificial synapses. They found strong evidence that the naked mole rat apparently does not die of old age. And this was January. This list is gonna take a while. They launched and landed the Falcon Heavy. Human ova were grown in a lab for the first time ever. They found chemicals that could defeat some antibiotic-resistant bacteria. They made massive strides towards slowing down Alzheimer's in mice. They discovered a new form of light that could be used in quantum computing. They made a kind of graphene that could act as a superconductor. They found an important mechanism that led to muscle deterioration due to age in mice, and also a method to combat that. A new class of antibiotics was put on the lists. They developed a new method for manufacturing long strips of graphene. They had a robot assemble an IKEA chair, and it just did with no problems. They identified 44 gene variants that increase people's chances of suffering from depression. They made huge strides in quantum entanglement communication, going so far as to say that it might be possible, but probably not still, because it kind of violates some laws of nature still. They genetically engineered a new strand of rice that can increase yields by up to 30%. They 3D printed human corneas, and on the very same day, the FDA approved the very first artificial iris. They developed an algorithm that allowed machines to read 3D images like brain scans 1,000 times faster than before. They made pigs that are genetically immune to blue ears disease, which in the US alone costs the industry $644 million per annum. They got closer to making artificial T-cells for humans. They actually reversed wrinkles and hair loss due to age in mice. They developed a new technique that could potentially allow SSDs to store 1,000 times more data. They successfully transplanted lab-grown artificial lungs into pigs. They fully sequenced the genome of wheat. They developed a metal alloy that is 100 times more durable than steel, but it is made of gold and platinum, so don't expect any skyscrapers to be built out of this stuff anytime soon. They discovered that life has probably existed on Earth way longer than we initially thought. They found a new method for controlling nanobots with greater precision for a limited range of surgeries. They developed software that allows robots which are physically capable of picking up an object to pick up any object they have never before seen by inspecting it and devising a technique to pick it up. They grew esophageal tissue from stem cells and on the very same day also found skeletal stem cells for humans. They experimentally created quantum entanglement within living organisms. They developed a camera that can shoot at 10 trillion frames per second. They developed enzymes that can withstand significantly higher temperatures. Though very controversial, the very first gene-edited humans were born. They are immune to HIV, but we don't really know what other side effects that might have caused. They developed a polio vaccine that does not need to be refrigerated. They developed an algorithm that can solve text-based captchas in 0.05 seconds. The NHS assembled a database of 100,000 human genomes that is freely available to study by scientists to cure rare diseases. They put a seismometer on Mars. And they also found a process by which they could make bioplastic without using land or fresh water. This is all part from a list that you can find on Wikipedia called 2018 in Science. I'll link it in the description. You will find that I left most of the stuff out. All of these things are not present in your daily life because technology just doesn't work that fast. A lot of this is based on decades of exploratory research and will serve as exploratory research for future endeavors. A lot of this needs to be refined and fine-tuned, which can take a long time. A lot of this needs to be extrapolated, which also is far from simple. But science is advancing rapidly. And just because we're not going to be immortal cyborg AI superhumans on Mars next week, doesn't mean we're never going to be. Personally, I'm just excited what 2019 might bring in terms of technological advancement. If I had to guess, we'll probably see a lot of stuff in the field of machine learning, among other things. And hopefully also we will get some decent video games this year. Thank you very much for watching. Do the liking, commenting, and subscribing routine. Share this to your relevant communities. Do not spam them. Consider supporting me on Patreon. Follow me on Twitter. And in that spirit, maybe give everything a second thought that you see in I Fucking Love Science, because 100% it is bullshit what you read there. Go to Reddit. Go to the specific subreddits and look at the links that are posted there, and then people down there will explain to you why they completely overhyped the whole thing. And see you around, cunts.